The very best of tennis right there at Down Under, and you know quite well that Novak Djokovic, who is gunning for his 10th title at the Australian Open, has been taken to at least 4 sets. He won the first set convincingly by 6 games to 1, but dropped the second, and the third set is ongoing as we speak. We'll bring you details of that in due course. I'm Samson Lady, and this is the Arena. Good afternoon. Thanks for spending your next 30 minutes with us as we bring you the very best of sports. Let's begin with the Australian Open, talking about the very best of tennis and what it did, turning out to be in the men's category and women's category. Seeds are falling out. Let's start with the men. Casper Ruud, yes, the 2021 and 2022 US Open and French Open finalist, has been dumped out, and that's also shocking, just as Zverev as well as Taylor Fritz have all been dumped out. For Casper Ruud, he lost 6-3, 7-5, 6-7, 4-7, 6-2 to Jensen Brooksby, who is an American, a hard-hitting American, as it were. Uncharacteristic unforced errors right there from, Ruud cost him the game, and it's quite surprising. He joins Rafa Nadal as the top seed, to get out of the tournament, as it were. Remember, Nadal crashed out yesterday due to, partly due to his injury. Taylor Fritz as well was also another seed that fell, by the way, this morning. He lost as well 6-7, 4-7, 7-6, 7-2, 6-4, 6-7, 6-8. That ended 6-2, losing to home wildcard Alexei Popyrin. And it was a delight. You needed to see how the cut was, in array for the homeboy, who was able to pull off the upset. Do not forget that Alexander Zverev as well crashed out to an unlucky loser, talking about Michael Momo, who won by 7-6, 7-1, 4-6, 6-3, 6-2 to pull off a 4-set victory over Alexander Zverev. For Zverev, it's quite understandable. He's making a return to the tour, having suffered that nasty ankle injury against Rafa Nadal during the French Open last year. So his is quite understandable. But for Taylor Fritz, for Casper Ruud, it's quite shocking to say the very least. And then for Michael Momo, who defeated Zverev, he even had to reschedule his flight because he thought he was going to crash out, following the match. But it moves on, and it's quite shocking what we're seeing at the stage of the competition. Remember, it is the second round. Some players are into the third round and will be gunning for a place in the fourth round already. Let's see if there are more upsets when it comes to the men's game. But we know quite well that the top two seeds, Rafa Nadal, the top seed, as well as Casper Ruud, are all out of the tournament. Remember, world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz didn't participate in this as a result of injury. So, it opens definitely the other half of the draws, and you may just see someone nick his maiden semi-final appearance at the Grand Slam. It will be an intriguing story, to say the very least. Let's turn our attention now to the women's game. In the women's game as well, we had seeds. In fact, 4 seeds are falling off when it comes to the women's category of the Australian Open singles event. And but for the likes of Aryna Sabalenka as well as Caroline Garcia, they booked their place successfully into the next round. For Sabalenka, it was quite an impressive win as well, it must be said, over Shelby Rogers of the United States, pulling that off in straight sets, 6-3, 6-1. While for Caroline Garcia, it was more of a fight against the 2021 US Open finalist Leila Fernandez, right there on your screen. 7-6, 7-5, 7-5. That ended in favor of Caroline Garcia. For the 4 women's seeds that fell off today, you had Veronika Kendamotova, out, Annette Kontaveit out as well, not forgetting Irina Kamila Begu, as well as Samsonova, Lidmudlia, who all crashed out, surprisingly. For Sabalenka, she would next take on Elise Martins, who defeated Lauren Davis by 6-4, 6-3 scoreline. And you know quite well that Veronika Kondamova lost 6-4, 2-6, 2-6 to Katie Volinets. Yes, Volinets is the pronunciation of the name, and Volinets is ranked 113th in the world. She'll be taking on Zhang Shuai next. That's a matchup you probably want to see of both players, hard hitters, it must be said. Dona Vekic was the one who defeated Samsonova in straight sets, 6-3, 6-love. That ended. She'll be taking on Nuzria Parisian Diaz, and that's a matchup you should also expect. Well, let's move away from there. And now still talking about tennis, but not about the on-court action. Rafa Nadal, yes, we told you yesterday had a hip injury, and as a result, it affected his mobility in that straight sets loss. Now, the latest about that injury is that Rafa Nadal will be out for at least 6 weeks, and he should be out for between 6 to 8 weeks, but a minimum of 6 weeks as a result of the hip injury is sustained. Remember, he sustained that at the early hours, early on in the second set of that encounter, while it was a breakdown. So his opponent definitely gave it a good shot, being a setup and a point up, or a break up rather, before Nadal sustained the injury, which saw him lose his title when it comes to the Australian Open. It's definitely now that means that the earliest we'll see Nadal will be in March, when you have the summer and the spring rather, in terms of the cuts right there at Indian Wells and possibly the Miami Open. Although quite well Nadal will probably fancy his chances of recovering during that process and making a competitive return to his favorite surface, which is the clay, which will take the swing from April. So it will be intriguing to see how it is, but it's just terrible that it has to go through yet another injury. The Los Angeles Lakers there, with LeBron James tiring for them. Unfortunately, once again, they have to lose because LeBron James' heroics wasn't enough to get them the win. This time around, it was against the Sacramento Kings. 116 to 111 points victory for the Kings over the Lakers. Remember, the Lakers are injury riddled at this point in time. LeBron James top scored for them with 32 points, also had 9 assists in there, but it wasn't enough to get the Lakers the win, as it were. You had the Aaron Fox of the Kings scoring 32 points as well to guide them through the finish line. Rashawn Harris, taking the place of Domantas Sabonis, who was sidelined due to illness, scored 16 points, gathered 11 boards in there. Harrison Barnes amassed 20 points. You had Kevin Huerter with 18 points as well, as the Kings got the better of the Lakers for their 5th straight win, a winning streak, you must say. For the Lakers, aside LeBron James, you had Russell Westbrook with 19 points, and then we had Kendrick Nunn coming off the bench, scoring 14 points in there, not forgetting Wayne Gabriel with 10 points for them. Now, for the Lakers, this isn't a good run of form. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, and they've lost 3 losses. They have 3 losses in a row, and surprisingly, all 3 losses they've had, the total point margin is just 10 points. So it shows you how they are failing to close the game, as it were. And they lost to the 76ers by points. We know how that painful was. Now, this was just a 5-point margin, as it were. Well, the Lakers will be taking on the Grizzlies next. That's the Memphis Grizzlies on Friday. And the Lakers are now 20 wins and 25 losses into the regular season. Meanwhile, for the Kings, they are sitting comfortably 3rd spot in the Western Conference, courtesy of their 25 wins and 18 losses into the regular season. They will be taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder on Friday. That's a matchup you do not want to miss at all. It will definitely be a high-scoring game, as it were, especially if Domantas Sabonis makes a return for the Sacramento Kings. Away from that, let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. Yes, the Memphis Grizzlies were in action against the Cleveland Cavaliers. This was a game that definitely had the writing. It was meant to be Ja Morant on one hand for the Grizzlies against Donovan Mitchell for the Cavaliers. Unfortunately, Donovan Mitchell had to sit this one out due to a groin injury, but that didn't stop the game from being competitive, and Steven Adams, the big center for the Grizzlies, had to tip in Morant's miss to ensure that the Grizzlies they grinded out this result. 115 to 114 points victory it is for the Memphis Grizzlies, and the win is their 11th on a row. Again, it ties their franchise record of 11 successive wins, which they had last season around this time as well. There are 31 wins and 13 losses into the season, and they're just one of about 3 clubs or 3 franchises in the NBA this season to have reached the 30-point win mark. You talk about the Boston Celtics, you talk about the Denver Nuggets, you talk about the Memphis Grizzlies as well. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, Darius Garland had 24 points, 14 assists in the game. Caris LeVert with 23 points in there. Evan Mobley scored 18 points, also gathered 15 boards to get the Cavaliers very close to a win. As I said earlier, Donovan Mitchell, battling with a groin injury, won't be playing. It's not known yet if he will be available for selection when the Cavaliers take on the Golden State Warriors next on Friday. Now remember that the Cavaliers are 28 wins and 18 losses into the regular season. They're doing quite well and are poised for a playoff spot. Meanwhile, the Memphis Grizzlies, we know, have a whole lot going for them in terms of being, top of the conference, Western Conference precisely. Ja Morant, Desmond Bain doing it. Desmond Bain scored 25 points, Ja Morant 24 points to guide them through. They will be taking on the Los Angeles Lakers next, and that's on Friday. That should be a very good matchup.